Welcome to This Boomer Life with your host, Michelle Parrish Zuniga. We have a great guest with us today. His name is Hugh Pixler. He's a lawyer, a writer, a bicycle racer, and someone I've known for many years. And I am just delighted to introduce him to you. Good morning, Hugh. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Michelle. Thank you so much. It's good to be with you.
Well, I wanted to start us off today with your new book and talk a little about this series you've got going and your aspirations as a writer. I mean, I know you've done other things in your life, and we'll kind of wind those in, but tell us a little bit about these books you're writing.
Yeah, I think the writing started, I did have aspirations like that when I was young. I'd like a lot of 20-year-olds. I was going to write the great American novel, another Huckleberry Finn. It never happened. I went to law school instead. So
still a lot of writing though, right?
A lot of writing, pleadings and motions and briefs and petitions, all kinds of writing in a way, giving me experience. I think it gives most attorneys who have a litigation practice experience. But it wasn't really that much fun. So that's what I'm doing now. Now that I'm retired, I'm having fun. And so the book you're referring to is a book that came out. I think it came out in last August, and it's
what?
Oh yes,
like that cover.
I happen to have one too.
Well, I'm in the middle of reading this one right now. I read the first one, I enjoyed it, and now I'm in the middle of this one. Vengeance Ain't Never Enough is a great title.
Yeah, I kind of went around and around about that title, and I decided to go with it because another one that I had, I did the research. The other one that I was thinking of had been used before. So this is one that definitely has not been used. So the idea is I'm working on number 3, and the idea was to do a 3-book set of following these same characters, starting just after all of them got out of the war in 1865, and then into the mid to late 1870s. It's going right now in book number 3. Yeah.
Well, I noticed that one of the main character in your first book was a lawyer.
Yeah, that was easy.
Well, they say write about what you know.
Yeah. So it wasn't as easy as I thought, because I wanted to. These are Westerns, of course. They're novels. It's kind of a specialized genre, very simplistic type of writing and storylines. But I did want to get the history right. I wanted to lay my story on top of a proper history. And so I did end up doing a lot of research to see what the state of the law was in 1866 and 67, I included 2 trials in that first book. There's a lot of conflict in those books between bar brawls, fast draw shooting, and trials. So I did a lot of research to find out what the rules of evidence were like. So what would a trial really look like? It wouldn't look like a trial today, I assumed, and that's right. And it wouldn't look like a trial, trials that you see if you're watching Western movies. It would be, if you have attorneys on both sides, it would be something in between. And so I was able to find since this happened before the state of Colorado existed, I was able to find the territorial laws that controlled a lot of those things.
Well, I mean, when you're in a territory that's not really part of the United States yet.
Yeah, so the law was at that time was the territorial law was federal. So that made things different. And I really had fun going down to the Colorado Historical Society, and they allowed me to look through some of these ancient pleadings. They had somebody watch over me, and they gave me the rubber gloves, and I was able to open up these old files. And I felt so bad because I opened up a complaint or an answer, and the paper would crumble in my hand. The acid-based paper it turns yellow, and it gets really brittle.
Yes.
And I'm kind of looking at the guy, is this okay? I shouldn't be doing this. These things should be digitalized and researched that way. And in any event, I didn't learn much from those. I had boxes and boxes of pleadings, but they were, of course, in handwriting, and I couldn't read the handwriting. It was even between the handwriting and the brittle paper, it was very difficult. Yeah, but I did find some case law from that time period, which helped me out. Yes. So as you may remember, we had one. The first trial was during the wagon train ride west in a small town in Kansas, in a bar, of course. And the second one was in an actual courtroom here in Boulder, the courtroom that was just built at that time in Boulder. I believe 1866 it was finished. Their first courthouse.
Well, and you probably have more information about Boulder and its history here, living here in Boulder.
Yeah.
Than you could find anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, we have one of the famous Carnegie libraries here, a little old sort of pseudo-Greek classical building on Pine Street, just north of Pearl. That's all it is history. It's a Boulder history museum. So you can do research, you can get professional research help, and it's fascinating to go through boxes of original old photographs.
Yeah.
And I used some of that to establish like where we are in the story and what things look like and things like that.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, just I just wanted to touch a little bit on your work as a lawyer, doing civil rights and employment law. What would you say was the thing that you were most proud of that you accomplished as a lawyer?
I think in employment law encompasses it's mostly federal, and a lot of it has to do with discrimination and harassment, sexual harassment, discrimination, racial harassment, discrimination, national origin harassment and discrimination. And then when I sued governmental entities, then I could add onto those types of claims constitutional claims. So some of those would pertain to potential claims that I would have against municipalities, counties, state, or many times suing the federal government itself. So there's a large panoply of federal laws, and then a lot of state law. Also, there are a few torts that apply in the employment relationship, and of course, the law of contract. And there are so-called equitable claims that are sort of developed equity developed alongside of law in a fascinating history that goes back to before Henry VIII. But we all, our states sort of received, most states, all states except for Louisiana, wrote reception statutes so that we received the common law of England, which included a lot of these equity cases besides the law cases. And as you can imagine, Louisiana adopted instead of English law. The Napoleonic Code, yes. Their law is based on Napoleonic Code.
Interesting.
So I think the best kinds of things that I did was to my whole idea in practicing law was I was never going to represent the powerful against the powerless. I wanted to represent in employment cases. That means I was representing the employee plaintiffs. And a lot of what I did was to give plaintiffs, especially some in low-level type jobs. I mean, I represented people from the bottom to the top, but I had a lot of low-level so-called people who might not have found representation otherwise. So I think that's one of the things that I look back on, and and think that I was doing the right thing.
Yes, that must be very satisfying.
Yes.
And any regrets?
Regrets. Yeah, I guess instead of going to law school, I could have been a writer.
Well, I'm happy you are now.
But I probably couldn't have made a living at that time. I think it takes a lot of time to bake that into your system that you can do something like that. Mm-hmm. Because when I retired, I thought, okay, now I have this idea for a book in mind. Now I should go out and find some classes that tell me how to write. And I quickly got rid of that notion and decided, no, at this stage in life, I'm just going to do it. That was the thing that really helped. And I couldn't believe how, the thing that amazed me so much, and I'm not going to say I'm good at this, but the way it flowed was, but between narrative and dialogue, it just seemed natural how to go from one to the other and when to use one or the other. So
well,
it was good. It was good. That first one was a really positive experience, and the second one, I hope when you're done, you will agree, was better, and maybe the third will be better than that. I don't know.
Well, I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on the third one, because the characters you have created are so interesting. So so the first book was about the lawyer,
yes,
and the second one is, basically a farm boy,
yeah,
and but that these guys all got together. I mean, they're veterans, Civil War veterans, and so there is a whole thing of how the military kind of jumbles up people from all different backgrounds, and that's so in the Civil War just as much as World War II.
Yes, and in the case of the ex-slave Gabe, the character Gabe, he was not allowed to fight with white units, but Lincoln finally approved what some of his generals were requesting in probably late 1863, 1864, that they put together some black units, and so they were called, at the time, colored troops. And so that's how Gabe ended up with the famous 54th Massachusetts down at Fort Wagner.
And they had a white leader, right?
Yes, Colonel Shaw. Uh, and if people aren't familiar with that whole story, I would recommend watching the movie Glory, which
Oh,
is
yes.
yeah, which really I think does a good job of showing how badly the troops are treated, but how well Colonel Robert Shaw treated them. I mean, he fought for them, um, and then what they did at Fort Wagner was just amazing, and they showed the whole world. People weren't giving them any respect. These guys can't fight. They're not going to fight. They fought, and they lost. They lost some 300 men on that one afternoon, that one night at Fort Wagner.
Wow.
It was an amazing and touching story. And so Gabe was there. So he has a lot. He has a lot going on in his mind, and the other ones as well. And that's where the idea of the soldier's heart came from, that I used in the book. That all three are suffering from soldier's heart, which is
we call that PTSD today.
Yes. It was soldier's heart, and then it was battle fatigue and combat fatigue, and there were various names through World War I and World War II, and we finally shell shock. That was another one.
Oh, yes.
We finally figured out that it was something that was diagnosable, that like in the Vietnam era, and then it made it into the diagnostic and statistical manual as a diagnosable condition.
Well, I noticed in the book that your Chinese character recognizes soldier's heart and teaches them to meditate as a way of dealing with
Yes,
recurring incidences
and
connected with.
they do all three characters at one time or another in one book or another have flashbacks, and they lose awareness of where they are physically, and they take Lin Chi's, the Chinese characters words, they use them to calm themselves down and come back, and the characters, I hope it's becomes clear after a while, they become better at doing that based on what Lin Chi tells them. Lin Chi is the local Chinese laundryman, a little old stooped over guy, who he runs the Chinese laundry, which was, I mean, that's what it was. That's what it was called here in Boulder in those days, as it was in many Western towns.
Mm-hmm.
And he came from
niche.
A wisdom tradition called Chan, which many people are not aware of. But, and so I tried to make clear in the book that is what the Japanese adopted and called Zen. So it's Chan. Zen is Chan, and then of course the Japanese they did they adopted it, and as these wisdom traditions go from culture to culture, they change according to their cultures, and different traditions and lineages come out of those, which is maybe a good thing, because it shows growth.
They're adapted to the particular culture, right?
Yes, shows
I mean,
growth.
I don't know how Zen will be modified out of being in America, as in 100 years, what that will be like.
Yeah, I don't know that, but I really wanted to show that those, like the things that Lin Chi could teach in terms of giving instruction, but also in terms of providing a way to meditate could help these young, I don't want to say disturbed, but these young men who had come out of just a horrific situation. Two of them had mustered in 1861, and so they were there for the whole 4 years. And when they came out, they were 22 years old. It's not, and that's not just my character's story. That's so many real life stories. They went through this. They come out into the world. They haven't been necessarily educated. All they know is their horse and their guns, and what can they do after that?
And their buddies.
And their buddy, yeah.
So your Chinese character is really able to give them relief that nobody else really has offered that. I mean, been able to provide for them.
Yes, I think they recognize, like many people do, they recognize in him immediately a quality in a person who comes from a wisdom tradition like that they haven't seen before, and it's so foreign and exotic to them. They don't know what to think about it, but you're in his presence, and there's something unique and different and wise and open, especially with, I tried to describe Lin Chi as being, he's got that silly, goofy grin, and he's got that gap tooth grin. He's missing teeth, and he's hopefully he comes across as childlike,
not threatening in any way.
Yes, not threatening, but with something important to say. Not threatening. He has no agenda. He's giving them his presence, and with a CE presence, his awareness, and they see something in that helps them learn. And in the first book, The Fourth Gun, Billy, the main character, he's 22 years old, and before the war, he was working in a law firm the way they did in those days. Many didn't go. There were only a couple of law schools that were starting to form. So they learned by way of apprenticeship. So he was doing that when he joined up and went to war. So when he came out, and the partners of that law firm had been killed also in the war and went west, he was searching and found essentially two teachers. And one was Lin Chi with learning the chant, and the other was the gentleman in St. Louis who taught him how to shoot. And he was learning on the one hand Chan, and on the other hand how to use his Colt. He had an Army Colt 44. That's what he was doing. So it's like he had two masters, and to help him go west and learn how to live in any given situation, which one of those would guide him towards making the right decisions. And then, of course, at the end of the book, we won't give anything away, but both of them come into play at once.
Well, so Hugh, you also meditate, yes?
Yes. I meditate at the Boulder Shambhala Center, which I've been doing for many years. And so I sit there from 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. weekdays, Monday through Friday. So I get my 5 hours a week in.
And so is your Lin Chi character, is he based on any of your teachers?
No, he's based on maybe my ideal of a teacher, but also on, I've read so much on meditation and awareness that I guess I guess maybe he's a consolidation of many authors that I've read. Whether from Tibetan Buddhism or Japanese, the Zen or practicing Zazen, or Southeastern Asian traditions, mostly called the Theravadan traditions from Southeast Asia. I mean, everywhere Buddhism traveled, it was changed and modified, and different teachers and masters came out of those different traditions. Even in it came from India originally, and a lot of people think of Tibet as being its origins. The tradition is that a teacher named Padmasambhava came from India to Tibet and started teaching his philosophies. I'm not even sure if they called it a religion. And even in Tibet, in that sort of original place of Buddhism, I think of it that way anyway, they combined it with their ancient Bon, the Bon, Bon religion, and made people don't want to give up their traditions, but they'll adopt something else, and so they just consolidate. They bring everything together. Yeah,
kind of like the Irish.
That's right. Yeah. Some of those. We don't lose some of those ancient traditions. We might not know that we still have them because they've changed and been absorbed so much, but they're still in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, Hugh, I generally ask people about their spiritual journeys. Could you just say a little bit about how, your family when you were young, and how you ended up here meditating 5 days a week in a Tibetan Buddhist building?
I don't know if there's I don't know that there's a connection, but I grew up in a Methodist family. But both of my parents were from the Midwest. My mother actually was born and raised in India, but came back to her family. And she was the daughter of a Baptist missionary. She came back to her family. She came to this country when she was 11 years old, and came to Ohio. And my dad was born and raised in Iowa, so they were both from good old Midwestern Protestant stock. And but I kind of left that behind me early on. It just had nothing for me. I had no no beliefs in that area. There seemed to be so much hypocrisy in it that I was very, very young when I put that aside. I don't know how that translates into my interest in meditation, because I did develop an interest early on. I think, I don't know if it's an attraction to, studying philosophy or Eastern philosophy. It's just, at some point I realized it is really different on the other side of the world. There is a different way of looking at life. And whereas most of what I learned in the West was about logic and scientific method, and those things are so good and so important. In the East, it seemed to be more about awareness. And so the idea of clearing one's mind attracted me. And that's where the meditation comes in, I guess. I'm just kind of feeling my way through this since you asked the question. And then I took these 5 levels. I went through 5 levels of instruction at Shambhala, which comes out of a Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And I realized when doing that it's not like I'm thinking all of these thoughts. They are coming in after me. Those thoughts are there, no matter whether I want them to be there or not. And it is so difficult to slow them down. And I'm not sure if anyone can make them go away. There are some meditation masters who maybe can do that for hours on end. I don't know any, but it is so interesting what happens during meditation if you're having a successful day, a good day on the cushion. It's so interesting to see what happens when you are ridding yourself of all of that discursive thought, that those thoughts that are just constantly invading your mind, whether you want them to be or not. And I've read some material on that as well, because that is so fascinating to me. How that is a function of how we evolved, how humans evolved. And so, it's natural and it's happening to everybody, but that doesn't mean we can't do anything about it.
Yes. Well, one of the practices that I learned at Landmark Education was sitting. It is a different kind of sitting. And they sometimes joke that instead of calling it sitting, they should call it return to sitting. Because after about 15 seconds, your mind is off to something,
Yes.
off to the races.
Yes.
And then it's like you bring it back, return to sitting.
Yes.
And you bring it back. So, I mean, it's not an esoteric practice at all. It's just a sit there and bring your mind back and when it wanders off.
Yes, and that's really good. That's what happens, and that's why I see it as working. I don't see it for me as a spiritual practice. I see it as working with my mind. Mm-hmm. And some people put a spiritual gloss on it, and of course, and some Buddhists put a religious gloss on it, and there are some beliefs that go along with that, and that is the part of it that goes too far for me. I just, there is a lot of literature. There's a body of literature how one can be a very good Buddhist, for instance, and at the same time be atheist or agnostic. And I think I guess that's where I fit in more, like an agnostic practitioner of Buddhist inspired meditation. There we go. That's you. I've learned something doing this with you, Michelle. That's good.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, I didn't want to leave out your racing and because the whole physical exercises I know has been very important to you. And you and your dad used to run together, didn't you?
Right. Yeah. As he got older, I think probably the first time I ever ran with him was when he was in his 70s, I think. And he came to Boulder to run the Boulder 10K with me once, and then he came to Georgetown. He did the Georgetown to Idaho Springs half marathon with me. He must have been in close to 80 at that point, and that's the last race of that distance that he did. I felt terrible, like he was doing it to do something with me, and he came across the finish line. I was waiting and waiting for him, and when he came, he looked just horrible. And it's what a trooper.
Yes. Well, your dad, he ran and he hiked and he wrote books about hiking. So
yeah, you know what got him into that? The running. When he was still living in Durango, he was in his 50s. He went to a cardiologist who told him, "You better start doing something because your tests show that you have a problem." there's in your heart, with your heart, there's something faulty in the structure of your heart. And he started immediately, he started to run, and he started to love it. And 6 to 12 months later, the cardiologist called him back in and told him, we made a mistake. Yeah, there is nothing wrong with your heart. By that time, my dad was hooked. And he was, from that time on, so he was a 30-some year runner, and he ran in the senior games. He traveled around to run. And he ran in all of the Durango, the local running races that they have there. But that's what got him started.
Uh-huh. Well,
Yeah.
I fully expect to see you in those senior games when the time comes.
I don't know. I'm getting to the point where I can still cycle pretty well, but the running, I'm down to maybe 2 days a week running, just because of the pain in the knees and the back. It's just everybody. One orthopedic surgeon told me everybody comes with their standard equipment. You're good for 20 years of middle or distance running, and that's about it. And I've gotten more than that in, so I think I'm in good shape.
And tell us about the bicycling.
Yeah, so I used to cycle a little bit to cross train and back up my running, and now I'm doing just the opposite. I'm running a little bit, and the running I just love. That was my first love, and so I use the running to back up the cycling. So the cycling is my main event, and I'm still doing a few races, but also some so-called grand fondos, where they're just these mass rides, like in Colorado we have a ride called the Triple Bypass. Is a good one, and the yeah, I know it's good, isn't it? That's good. But you climb 3 passes. It's 120 miles, and you climb over 10,000 feet, because you climb Juniper Pass, Loveland Pass, and Vail Pass before you go from Evergreen to Vail. That's a good one. I love those hard rides like that aren't races, because I still, even though I'm competing in my age group, when I race, I still get kind of jazzed up for it and nervous for it. And for something like the Triple Bypass, I'm just nervous because I know how much pain I'm going to be experiencing. but it's not, there's no competitions, and it feels a lot better. And
like a community all out on bikes.
Yes, and everybody, and it's a very good community, because after several hours, everybody knows how much everybody else is suffering. So it's a community where everybody is getting respect from everybody. Everybody is giving respect to everybody else because of what it takes to go through something like that. And everybody is pushing the envelope. And in a way, this is also a mental exercise. How much can I do? How hard can I push before the mind just tells the body, no, this is over. Stop. You don't have to do this. And that's what the mind always says. That's what my mind, like in the 22nd mile of a marathon, it just says stop. Well, there's no reason that you have to do this. The mind just starts working. So pushing that envelope is good. Running or cycling or doing any other really hard aerobic exercise like that.
And so, do you recommend that to other boomers? Or is it too late to start doing that kind of thing?
I don't think it is too late to start. You don't have to do things like ride the Rockies or Triple Bypass, or you certainly don't have to race. You can just start off easy and take it easy. Of course, just anything that gets you outside in the sun and gets you moving. That is so important for us at our age. Moving. Any kind of movement is so good, especially if you're getting your your core warmed up and your heart rate up and you're breathing hard, that's good. That's good stuff.
Uh-huh. Well, last year I went with my kids and grandchildren to the unicorn race in Highlands Ranch. And
I'm not familiar with that one.
well, it's a little 5K.
Yeah,
And all the little girls were dressed up in unicorn and fairy costumes.
of course. Yes.
And some of the, and some of the parents as well. And so it was very fun. But I was having so much trouble with my knees then, and
Oh,
using a cane. I did
oh,
the saunter half of a 5K, I think. It was not
okay.
very long. It
Okay.
was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just a lot, really a walk around the park.
Yeah.
And so it was mostly grandmas and toddlers in my race.
Yeah.
But the people at the end of the race were so great. And even us little old ladies who were coming in with our canes and our walkers, they gave us medals, and they said, come and have something to drink. And
Well, yeah.
that's, and I have my medal hanging on my bulletin board here, and it's the rainbow with clouds.
Nice. There's a kind of a saying that even if you're slow, or even if you come in last, you still beat all those people who are still at home laying on the couch. Yes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, truthfully, it was very fun to be out. It was out with the family, and my son-in-law walked with me, and so did two of the boys. And, it was great.
Yeah.
And, my daughter, Rebekah, she stopped during the race because somebody fell down. And she's a physical therapist. She stopped to make sure they were okay, and got them up and moving again. And I just had, it was just like it was like such happiness.
Yes.
Happiness
Yes.
to be
You know,
part of that experience.
yeah,
And I think Colorado is one of the best for races. I mean, I think every weekend there's some kind of a
there
race
is.
or
There is. And
walk or run or.
and now it's getting warmer, and we're going into what I see as cycling season. So I'm getting excited about that.
We're moving from ski season to cycling season, right?
Yes, yes. And then in the fall, it's more running. As it gets colder and colder, more running season. Yeah, and that's when the marathon season really is all over the country in the fall. Yeah.
Well, life was good, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us today, Hugh. And I'm really looking forward to getting your next book.
Yeah, I'm still. I have a great sense of gratitude sometimes after a run. I can do a whole. The other day, I ran 5 miles with no pain, and that doesn't happen very often. And that's
All right.
I guess the problem with that is that encourages me to do more, and and then yeah, I'm just asking for the pain. So,
Yes.
but it's maybe that's not such a bad problem to have.
Well, I guess any kind of athletic stuff, you're going to have some pain.
Yeah, especially in our age, or at my age. I have lots of joint problems, arthritis, and weak. My bones are no longer strong. But cycling is good for that. Without the pounding, cycling is actually good for that. So why not keep it going?
Exactly, as long as you can.
Yeah.
Stay as healthy as you can.
Yeah.
And I'd say be as happy as you can.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Hugh. We're out of time, but I just love that we had this conversation. And again, I want to recommend your books to people. And, you know, by the new Zane Grey and Louis L'Amour right here in Boulder, Colorado.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate that. This has been fun. This has been fun.
Welcome back, boomers. Well, I really enjoyed talking with Hugh Pixler today and hearing about his new book, Vengeance Ain't Never Enough, a Western. So the second in a series of 3. He's working on the 3rd one now. So I told him we'd have him back when he gets the 3rd one published. And we'll hear more about his adventures traveling around the world, Russia, Vietnam, many places. So that'll be fun too. So and I wanted to let you know that Hugh leads his meditation group in Boulder. And I will put in the show notes where it is so that if you are an experienced meditator you'd like to join, you would be most welcome, and Hugh will let you in. So I'll put that in the show notes. And also I'll put the names of his books in the show notes. And I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. And of course, I always have to say, if you want to be happier and healthier and more on the go, drink happy juice.